So without any further delay, because it's a busy night, it's a very busy night, right? That's what we're looking to do, okay? So I just want to thank you all for coming out to find out what plant-based eating is, what plant-based lifestyle is, what the food is about, what the nutrition is about, because it's something that we really haven't learned along the way in life for the most part. Okay? And I want you all to be open-minded, because I think many of you did not grow up here, maybe never heard of the landings, and changed your life when you relocated and left friends and family to come to a whole new area and to make a whole new life for yourself. You may never heard of pickleball like I did, but you're doing it now. Maybe never heard of plant-based, but maybe it's something that's for you. So just be open-minded, and there's more information. This is under Plant Strong of Skidaway Island, which is under the auspices of the Landlovers Group, so that we're protected with their insurance and everything that they have to offer, along with their promotion, their advertising, and everything else. Not a big deal. So, and you don't have to be a club member to be part of Landlovers. You just have to be a resident of Skidaway Island. So you can live down in South Harbor, you can live in Modena, so, and you can be off the island and be a guest. So there you go. I want to thank you all for coming out. And before I start, please check your phones, and if you can put them in silence mode, that would be appreciated. Tonight we have 5 panelists who have volunteered to share their experiences of a plant-based diet and the benefits that they have personally seen, and answer any questions that you have. Please know that we're looking to keep this as simplified as possible, as this is plant-based 101. Even though you may have been doing this for a long time, maybe there's something that you'll pick up along the way. The goal of this session is to provide you with information and possibly even some stories that you can relate to, and therefore have a support system with this Plant Strong group. Medical studies have shown that eating a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, nuts, and seeds, and minimally processed can reverse and eliminate the diseases that people suffer with, including heart disease, high blood pressure, inflammation, cholesterol, overcoming obesity, and even cancer. Eating this way can allow you to eat as often as you want without having to worry about what you're eating. There's so much more creativity with these plant-based foods, and even so much more than the way we used to eat. A plant-based diet eliminates all foods derived from animal, all beef, chicken, game, lamb, fish, shellfish, eggs, and dairy. My journey began in 2017 when our youngest son, Skylar, met us for our oldest son's wedding, and he shared with us that he'd been plant-based for a month. He introduced us to the documentary Food Choices, and subsequently, we changed our steak dinner to the mushroom risotto. This March, it'll be 5 years since we adopted this lifestyle. When we returned home from the wedding, we cleaned out our refrigerator and pantry from any animal-based foods. We were totally committed to this way of eating and cooking. We continued watching these types of educational documentaries, listening to podcasts, reading books to learn more about what this is about. With a short amount of time of shifting to plant-based foods, I lost 10 pounds without efforting, reduced my total cholesterol, gained more energy and more endurance, and performance improved. For me, I'm able to eat as much as I like as often without worrying about gaining or feeling uncomfortable. In 2018 and 2019, we went on vegan cruises with our friends from New York, where we met and interacted with the top doctors and researchers involved in plant-based lifestyle. I then went on to create tasting seminars where I offered weekly sessions of breakfast and lunch and then dinner preparations. After a round of 3 of these, I put together a 10-course tasting dinner with about a dozen men and friends from here, including one of the chefs who attended. One of my dishes was adopted on the menu at Oak Ridge for a while because the chef liked the way it tasted. I also had Rick Weisinger as a guest speaker then, and hence asked Rick to come out on this panel as well. Thank you, Rick. Plant Strong of Skidaway Island launched its first event this past October with a group of 20 at Skidaway Farms, each contributing a dish featuring guest speaker Mike Stevenson, who was also on the panel the other day. Thank you, Mike. For the holidays last month, many of you women were at my dinner where I hosted a Mediterranean, Greek, Middle Eastern cuisine at my home. I had 20 ladies pair up to prepare different dishes, 5 of whom I hadn't even met. With all the activity and the physical health consciousness groups that this community provides, the one area that they are behind in is clearly the lack of providing nutritional, healthful dining in our clubs. I, along with others in this group, want to make an impact so we can help change the offerings that the club menus provide to include more of the foods on a regular basis without always having to call ahead and making special provisions for our meals. And that brings us to tonight. To keep expanding the awareness of the benefits associated with this lifestyle and to grow Plant Strong with Stewart Adam. I just want to have a little change in starting off. We're going to start with Joe. I appreciate Joe Klecker coming out because Joe has some family issues to attend to, but I want to give Joe his due introduction. Joe is newer to plant-based eating. He shared with Skylar, our son, in a podcast interview that Skylar did with him in November, that he's much better off grazing throughout the day. He eats fruits, nuts, and salads, are better as a coach, being on his feet all day. He said if you want to go the extra step, what you're putting in your body has a lot to do with what you can produce. Joe also expressed to Richard and me at a putting lesson that he wishes the clubs provided some of these foods that fuel his body rather than having to bring them from home every day. So Joe, I'm going to let you take it from there and just share some things maybe that, from your heart and what you experienced.
Is it okay to stand up?
Please do,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, this big, I'm talking about your grip or, so this is, I should definitely, the experts are up here, but thanks Simone for having me. And, a few items too, golf, who's golfer in here too? Okay. When you play golf after 9, used to the turn, right? What's usually at the turn house? Hot dogs, right? So I've probably eaten a million hot dogs, right? And then I crash on the back 9 and I'm like, what just happened? As a player, I started to correlate performance with preparation. Like what I was doing to prepare with my practice and get ready. And then a lot of it had to do with, being on the course, not crashing or having different energy surges and highs and lows. And what was interesting, I started to eliminate and replace more with fruits and nuts, more consistent energy through the day. I started using supplements, all plant-based shakes and things that I could prepare. And I found it was really effective when I played. And for me, when I coach, I was sharing, I'm the son of a professional golfer too. My father was a club pro for over 50 years. And I know club kitchens because I lived in it. That's pretty much it. And staff meals tend to be chicken fingers and fries and anything that goes in the fryer and goes out on the plate. That's what the staff gets, right, Mike? That's what's on. So we know what that can do. And in terms of how I perform as a coach, it had a lot of impact on me to realize, I have to do a better job for the players that I get all day, that they want that same experience, not crash and burn for me either. So started modeling that, working with a lot of my players too, and kind of suggesting, hey, what are you doing on the golf course? What do you do when you prepare to play? And some, I don't know, I have no idea. We started to talk about it. And it's interesting for my performance players, the players that I coach on a regular basis who play in events, it was making a difference. It was really changing how they prepped and performed. For me, I had an experience recently. I went out to Carlsbad, California. I work a lot with TaylorMade, and that's where their headquarters are. And when I'd stay in Carlsbad, I couldn't believe how many plant-based restaurants there were. And they were fast and easy, and it was great food. And I texted Simone some pictures of my meals. I said, look at this. She goes, yeah, that's good stuff. So anyway, the feedback that I have is that I'm definitely new, and I'm definitely learning. you know, how to shop, what to prepare, and in my day, a lot of times too, it's amazing how switching from beef jerky to fruit salad, right? Not that hard. I would have thought that'd been really challenging, but it's not. And something weird that I guess the experts can talk to about this, like my taste has changed in a lot of stuff. Like I've just acquired a different taste. My kids are coming along. Like if I make them a plant-based, you know, sausage, you know, they don't know the difference. If I make a breakfast sandwich with that, they don't know. They're okay with it. And so those the hot dog story, they don't know when I put in a Beyond Meat sausage or something there too. And I don't know if that's cool or not, if I can do that, but I think it is. It sounds
Whatever works for you.
all right, that's what I meant. So that's my 101. That's me showing that I'm a 36 handicap at this, but I'm trying to get better. So with the help of some experts, I believe I can too. So
Great.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm honored. Thanks for asking me to be a part of it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for showing up. We appreciate it.
Deal.
You know,
Okay.
what Joe brought up is something interesting,
Thank you.
so that we can help and teach him, and maybe we can drop off some food for him from time to time when he's out on the range. If we have an extra salad at home or something, it would be awesome to be able to provide that. You know, they have food chains and such set up for other people that need it. He's a person that needs it too, you know, and supporting him supports the whole program and gets the word out even stronger. So like Joe brought up something which was interesting, and that, you know, before I did this, I never knew that we could change our taste buds. Did you ever think you could change your taste buds? Unfortunately, they didn't teach us that in health class in the 70s, you know? And the food pyramid also got turned upside down, more so in Canada than the US. But what I do remember in the 70s is a saying that you are what you eat. It should have been said more accurately, what you eat becomes a part of you. So my question to you is, do you want the baked potato to be a part of you, or do you want the Twinkie to be a part of you? That's what happens to your cells. Your cells can either help you or hurt you. And I was inspired because I've done some other seminar work as a participant with Jeff Adams leading some seminars off the island, and just how to bring this to the island to take it to another level. Because people are getting sick and maybe there's not a reason for them to have to suffer. And in that note, I'm going to turn it over to Greg. Greg and his wife Laurie, who helped out in the front desk, purchased their, there she is. She's hiding. They purchased their home here in 2018. Greg began moving to a plant-based diet in 2015 when his doctor told him he had very serious health issue. He had been on a low-carb, ketogenic, and paleo diet for more than a decade at that point, and after reading a number of diet books, found out that this way of eating was actually causing his issues. Vowing to never be duped again by diet promoters, he learned to read the scientific literature and spend an enormous amount of time learning as much as he could about nutrition and its impacts on health. Take it away, Greg.
All right, thanks, Simone. So I was overweight almost my entire life. From very early on until about age 50, I constantly was battling my weight, and I tried every diet that has ever been developed, including the cabbage diet and I can stand up, sure. Weight Watchers, I mean, you name it. And then at one point, I got all the way up to 240 pounds, which for me was pretty heavy. I decided I've got to do something different. So I read a bunch of books like Atkins Diet and things like that. And I thought, I'm going to try this. And so it wasn't that hard. And I just ate mostly meat and a lot of fat. And I did lose a little bit of weight. I also started running at that time. But weight would come down, but then it would kind of plateau and then go right back up a little bit and then come down, and I was just kind of bouncing around. I couldn't really get down to my goal weight. And this started in my 30s or late 30s when I was on this low carb diet. And it's the same thing: ketogenic diet, low carb, Atkins. They're all really the same thing, and they're really heavily promoted by folks that are. There's a whole cottage industry of folks promoting those diets. but they go against everything we were told as kids, like, you know, eat your vegetables and, you know, fruit's good for you and all that. Well, on the low carb diet, all those things are bad. You can't eat fruit, you can't eat vegetables, you have to eat, you know, really fatty foods like meat. So, and then Laurie would tell you the lower my carbs were, the grumpier I got. So I kind of started out grumpy, but then I would really get grumpy. I think you need carbs to be happy. And then my cholesterol, every year I go to the doctor, my cholesterol numbers were getting worse and worse and worse. My blood pressure was creeping up. And then the year I turned 50, I went in for my annual physical, and my doctor said, Greg, you know, every year I'm telling you, you've got a cholesterol problem. This year I've got a new test that we're going to do. And every year we measure your LDL cholesterol, which is the amount of cholesterol your LDL particles are carrying around in your blood. This year we're going to measure the number of LDL particles themselves. And that's a really highly accurate test. It'll tell you really what your risk is. And I said, okay, yeah, let's do that. So a couple of days later, I got a letter from him, and he said, I hate to tell you, but you have the worst test results I've ever seen. You're in the 98th percentile, which means only 2% of people have test results worse than you. And I'm like, what? And he said, if you don't do something radically different in the next 5 years, you'll have a heart attack or a stroke. And I was like, well, this can't be right. There's no way these test results are right. There must have been a mix up in the lab. And so I contacted the doctor and I said, look, there's just no way this is right. He goes, I assure you, Greg, these test results are correct. I'm like, well, I've run marathons. How can this be, you know, how can I have these bad results? He goes, it's your lifestyle, your diet. And he goes, you can take a statin and change your diet and all that kind of stuff. So over time, I came to accept that the test results are right. It was really hard. And so I said, what am I going to do? So I thought, well, maybe I'm not low carbing hard enough. So I went all in. I bought some paleo diet books, and I'm like, I'm doing exactly what they said, and I got my blood tested again, and it was worse. I'm like, okay, something's not right here. So one day I was reaching into the refrigerator and to grab a big chunk of cheese, which I love cheese, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna have a snack. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I eat a lot of cheese. What if, I hope this isn't true, but what if it's causing my problems? And so I decided for 2 weeks I wouldn't eat any cheese because I knew I had a blood test coming up for a life insurance policy I was buying. So no cheese, we'll see what the life insurance blood test says. Well, it made a huge difference. My cholesterol just dropped. Oh my gosh, that's good and bad. Love cheese, but now I know I can't eat it. But also now I have a clue what's going on. So what's in cheese? Well, it's full of saturated fat. What does saturated fat do? Well, it turns out that increases your cholesterol levels. Okay, well, what else has saturated fat in it? And so I started going down the list. All your dairy products, meat, shellfish, all of it. So slowly, I started eliminating things one by one. I think I did butter next, then maybe bacon, eggs, and just went down the list over a period of 6 months. And every time I got my blood tested, the results were better. Also, my blood pressure was dropping, my blood sugars were dropping, my weight was dropping. So it was like, wow, where's this been my whole life? So, the last thing I eliminated was fish. It was interesting, I had got my mercury levels tested because I was eating a lot of fish. And after I stopped eating fish, I got my mercury level tested again, maybe 6 months later, and it was undetectable, which I thought, well, that's really interesting. So there's a lot of mercury in salmon and tuna. So then I thought I'd give you just a kind of snapshot, some of my test levels. So before I changed my diet, LDL cholesterol was 172, it dropped to 72, so it was a 58% drop. My particle number. So this LDL particle number test that my doctor did, the number of LDL particles, normal is less than 1,000. My initial test was 2566, which was really bad. It dropped to 757, so it was a 70% decrease just by changing my diet. My weight at the time I went to the doctor was 197. It dropped to 175, so it's an 11% drop. Body mass index dropped 11%, but really importantly to me, my marathon times improved. So I went from my record when I was younger was 4 hours and 34 minutes. I dropped it to 3 hours and 52 minutes. So it was a 15% decrease in time. I was really happy. And I guess even more importantly, I'm a year and a half past the expiration date my doctor gave me. So that's really good. And then I guess there's people ask me a lot of times, like, how do you do this? They have a lot of questions. So we just saw the other day the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine is having a series of classes, and it's starting really soon. There's a handout on all the chairs that talks about it. There's 6 classes. I think they're an hour long. You can watch them live, or you can watch them later recorded. But they go through the basics. Why would you do this? How do you do it? What do you eat? All those types of things. And that's a really good group. So I think it'd be a worthwhile endeavor if you're new to this.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
And Greg also did the slideshow.
Yes. Greg put this together. Yes, my one techie guide. Yes, thank you.
So a lot of people say, well, how do you get enough protein to be an athlete? And every one of the folks on this slideshow is a professional athlete.
And some of them could pull our limbs off.
Yeah.
And there's a poster up there, if you want to take a picture of that poster that I put together, that was my husband, and take pictures of where do you get your protein, where do you get your calcium, omega-3. A lot of the foods transition over, they're in all 3 categories, so it's not really that hard to get most of it in your day. It's amazing. We just were never taught this, they didn't know, but just think, you people may ask yourself, like, how am I going to change? The people that initiated this with the China study, Colwell Campbell, he was studying this for 30 years. But when he first started this, he was a regular cardiologist, and he just, studied this, and he switched his whole practice. He had to switch his whole paradigm of how he existed, what he was about. And, same for other people. Even if you don't know, you have heard of Baskin Robbins, the owner, the founder, John Robbins, and his son, Ocean Robbins. I get their emails and such like that. They changed their priorities. They're not affiliated with Baskin Robbins anymore. They're plant-based people. They put out seminars, and they hook you up with other seminars. So there's always something right on your phone if you need to. So just want to give you that. Thank you very much, Greg. Appreciate it. Next speaker, we have Laurie Phillips, who's been interested in nutrition and health for a long time, primarily to support all the sports she enjoys, which is tennis, hiking, backpacking, cycling, and functional fitness. She became interested in plant-based eating when her daughter challenged her to try it for 30 days, which was over 5 years ago. She has never looked back. Thanks, Laurie.
Hi. First of all, Jeff Adams. He got me interested in this over 5 years ago, and he's a lifesaver for so many people in Savannah. But anyway, just want to tell you, we live in a very toxic food environment. Okay, we live in a very nice community. We have, good grocery stores, great restaurants. But overall in America, we have a very toxic food environment. The fast food, the processed food, even in restaurants, there's a lot of toxic food. And once you become aware of this, you'll start seeing what I'm talking about. But the Western diet, or the standard American diet, is killing us. And it's killing us with diseases of affluence. Rich people can afford to eat whatever they want, meat, dairy, whatever. And these diseases of affluence are documented, considering heart disease, cancer, obesity, diabetes, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, osteoporosis, autoimmune diseases, poor bone health, poor kidney health, poor vision, brain disorders, just to name a few. All of these diseases can be prevented or even reversed through a whole food plant-based diet. You don't have to believe me. I didn't believe it either. I grew up, my mother had cancer at 36, and after multiple cancers and 10 years of suffering, she died at 46. My dad had his chest cracked open at 60, quadruple bypass. Now these people were not heavy. They thought they were eating well, they thought they were okay, but they were eating the standard American diet like we've all eaten, which I've eaten. And you know, it killed them both at a young age. So I've always been interested in eating better, but I didn't really know what that meant. So I would eat like chicken and broccoli and some salads, but you know, on weekends I'd go off track, and then during the week I'd starve myself to try and get back to a decent weight. Well, you know, over the years my weight crept up, my cholesterol crept up, my blood pressure crept up a little bit. I was still, you know, doing a lot of exercise, so that wasn't too bad. But, you know, I still wasn't healthy, you know? I wasn't a healthy person. But my daughter challenged me over 5 years ago, and she said, why don't you try this for 30 days? I'm like, sure, this will be fun. You know, we'll just do it for 30 days. But I felt so amazing after 30 days. And I said, I'll do it another 30 days. You know, small bites. And I felt great, so I did it another 30 days. And I had to set myself a time limit because I didn't want to do this forever. You know, giving up hamburger and french fries and desserts. And ice cream, my God, my husband and I lived on Bluebell ice cream every single night. Like 2 bowls of ice cream every single night. But after 90 days, I felt amazing. I felt lighter. I felt more flexible. I didn't have any inflammation the next day. I play sports every day. The next day I'd wake up and I'd be kind of achy and kind of sore. All of that's gone. I can play, you know, hours of sports every day. I might be a little sore that day, but the next morning I'm awake. I have no aches and pains. I have no arthritis. So after 90 days of doing this, trying this, I was fully committed, fully in, and it's been 5 years, and I have never looked back. I have no regrets. After 2 years, my husband joined me. So he's been plant-based for 3 years, and he's doing great, and he's also very happy with this. What I want to tell you though, I don't want to talk too long. The science is here. The science has been here for decades, and it's been suppressed in America by a lot of strong groups and by our culture. But if you can believe the science, if you can learn about the science, and this is a learning process. You know, I gave you a handout with a lot of resources and references. You know, take advantage of those if you're curious, if you're ready. And just start learning. I've spent the last 5 years learning as much as I can, and I love this learning process. It makes it easier because, you know, if you believe it, you know, you're gonna experience the benefits. And you're going to realize that you're on the right track. So, I will say that whole food plant-based generates health and a sense of well-being, both physically and mentally. And you can have that. I failed to mention, in America, 40% of Americans will suffer from heart disease. 40%. There are places in the world where heart disease does not exist because they don't eat the same way we do. Can you imagine living your entire life without heart disease? 1 out of 11 people in America have diabetes now. 2/3 of Americans are overweight. 1/3 are obese, and 1/3 of our children are overweight. I mean, this is what we've done to our world is through our standard American diet, or the SAD diet. We're killing ourselves. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's what we know. We know this. We know that this is the way we eat, right? And if we want to eat better, we eat a little bit better. But it can be so much better than that. You can have a whole life that's much, much better than that. Okay, one more thing briefly. I have to tell you, my twin sister called me a couple nights ago, and she was in horrific health. Horrific. any day she was gonna have a heart attack or a stroke. I met with her 4 months ago. She was ready and she got started. She called me 2 nights ago and she said, I think you saved my life. And I believe we have. You know, she's adopted this whole food plant-based, and I believe Jeff understands. Jeff's here, he has an amazing story himself. But anyway, my twin, she said, I think you saved my life, and I really believe that. Okay. What else I got here? Okay. Briefly, learning to cook a new way. It's kind of fun. You know, there's all these, there's thousands of recipes out there. There's hundreds of cookbooks. There's all these resources. And at first, it's a little uncomfortable, but it's also fun because it's new and different. Let me see. You can eat very simply on this way of eating. You can eat a baked potato and a tossed salad. It doesn't have to be complicated. Or you can learn how to cook gourmet like Simone. She's an amazing cook. So it can be anything in between. So it doesn't have to be complicated. And you can get all the nutrients you want. You can eat this extremely nutritious way of eating, this diet, have long health, a long life without chronic illness, and it's absolutely possible. So I think I've covered everything.
Plant-based
Oh,
food
right,
too,
that's
that's it, you know, because we can't go into everything because there's just so much information out there. Like Laurie said, we're a country that's just overridden with disease because of our, you know, what we have available, but because what we're fed from the main industries, the dairy industry, and milk does your body good, you know, how is cheese addictive? That's interesting too. So, you know, all these things just pile on and people feel overwhelmed, but they'll go to the doctor and they'll take this pill and they'll take that pill, but it starts with you, and you have to take responsibility for your own health and investigate it, because they don't know all the answers either. And there's still differences within the plant-based community, you know, there's just, is olive oil okay? Well, maybe for some person it is, but maybe for somebody it's a trigger. Maybe some coconut sugar is okay for somebody, maybe another person it's a trigger. But, you know, we can have plant-based ice cream, or I can make banana ice cream, and I don't feel guilty about having ice cream anymore, because I'm not eating a huge bowl, because my food is nutritionally dense. So it just takes a little bit to feel so much more satisfied. Today, actually, on my phone, it came up, I just want to side note, in Cabo, St. Lucas. I know somebody who went there on vacation and recently, and this one hotel came up, it's pretty extravagant, highfalutin hotel. They have a taco for like, I don't know, I told Richard a crazy number, like $23,000. It had lobster, caviar, and gold leaf in it. I'm like, oh my God, just make it more expensive for them to, you know, ingest and die, you know? So it's just crazy. But, you know, if anybody has questions like, how do I get this flavor? I really gotta miss the flavor, and it's really about the tastes and the flavors that our taste buds dictate. We used to always have like, oh, we had to go out and eat a certain food because that's what we were craving. We don't have those cravings anymore because we've managed our taste buds, and we'll go out, and if this restaurant works or that one, but it does take a little effort and work. It definitely does. You know, we don't have all the plant-based restaurants that they do in San Diego where our son lives and where Joe is visiting. But we have to make more of a concerted effort, and maybe we have a whole program out here that would be awesome. So I also want to introduce you now to somebody who's a little familiar with us, and that is Mike Stevenson. And we know Mike from the court sports scene. He's an avid athlete and carries that influence into his career as a coach. Mike loves plant-based food and loves trying new things. He says that plants have opened him up to his eyes to what he can eat, and it gives him a reason to ask for what he can eat. Mike's focus is not on the kind of mental fortitude it takes to stick with a plant-based food as he loves it so. Mike says for others it's a hurdle just like stopping nail biting. Willpower is often quite the term, though when you plan and you surround yourself with people, that makes the difference. Michael will also touch on the performance aspect of food, the ability of something as a simple module date that can sustain him through a marathon. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, that I have in common with Greg running marathons. It's nice to see so many familiar faces, and for those of you who don't know me, a little bit about myself, I'm a coach, first and foremost. I was here at the landings court sports professional, tennis, pickleball, I guess bocce and croquet too.
Don't
And
forget that.
the other two I wasn't, I mean, for bocce I was quite good, but croquet, good enough to pass, good enough to be passable out there. I'm an athlete of all sports. You know, people always ask me, not to toot my own horn, but how are you so good at this? I was like, I don't know. Like I was telling Greg earlier before this started, you know, I just like to play things. I don't like watching a lot of things. I know the Georgia game's coming up, so watch the game. But you know, for me, it was like I'm watching this on TV. I could be doing this, so that's where that comes from. I'm a big reader, all books, any books. I just eat books, and that I probably inherited from my dad. I love food, specifically new food. I think Simone touched on that. And I would consider myself a life learner, not a life knower. I don't know a lot of things. I don't know actually most things. My wife knows everything.
Smart man, right there.
But I would say I'm open-minded, you know, so when ideas like plant-based food and things like that come across, you know, as Simone mentioned, having an open mind and just trying something out isn't the end of the world. You know, it's just trying something, and if it's not you, it's not you, but maybe it is, and we hope it is. My journey through plant-based food, I would say the key points for me, Laurie touched on one, fast recovery. That's absolutely true. I can tell the difference between having plant-based food and then having not plant-based food, and then how I recover. I've actually experimented with it, which you probably shouldn't do as a plant-based eater, but I do. You know, is this really true? It is. The clean, sort of you said it differently, Laurie. I don't know, I describe it as like a clean feeling, like my body feels clean, like it's operating at full potential. You know, I don't feel like I have to struggle to do things. I feel like, oh, what are we doing? Okay, you know, I go do it, and it's not like I have to push myself to go do those things. Part of that's mental too. I'm a little, you know, regular.
A little mental?
I would say, yeah, you could say that. A regular processing of food, and when my wife read that, she said, what do you mean by that? And I don't want to get into the specifics, but like I mean the regular processing through the human body of food. So we're all on the same page. We're all on the same page. Easier hydration. So like if you're eating a lot of plants and fruits and things like that, you're getting a lot of your hydration through your food. You know, you're not having to, you know, drink. I mean, drinking water is good, obviously, but you're not having to drink a lot of extra water because you're getting a lot of it through your food. It's a challenge, as Laurie mentioned, but as she also mentioned, it's a challenge, a good challenge. You know, not only good in the result, but it's good to challenge ourselves from time to time, whether it's on the pickleball court, on the tennis court, what else, bocce, croquet. But wherever you're trying to challenge yourself, you know, it's worth doing. And in this case, very much worth the effort. It's eye-opening culturally. You know, as Laurie mentioned, there's places in the world that don't have issues that we have in the States, specifically to do with the heart. I know for a fact that in India, that Alzheimer's is caused by swelling of the brain. Okay, and they've deduced through, I guess not trial and error, but through extensive study, that it's almost completely eradicated from their society because of the amount of turmeric they eat in their diet. So that didn't expose me to Indian culture, but eating plant-based, you wind up like, you know, well, this diet over here, this Indian diet, is already almost completely plant-based. So there's a lot of dishes that people already make that are almost completely plant-based, and I already love Indian food, so that part was easy. It is impactful in coaching and in connecting with people. You know, just like it would be if you had a different type of diet. We've got a room full of people that are either think a certain way or maybe will learn to think differently or a certain way, that become our community. And you know, one plant strong person is one plant strong, but lots of plant strong means, you know, lots of change around the landing and a lot of the communities surrounding, to influence just the way just the options that people are given. You know, not given just one option for food, given a variety. You know, my mom always said everything in moderation. How to get started? This and I should have put that on there first. For me, it was podcasts, documentaries, books, obviously. I recommend starting slow. I mean, both Greg and Laurie were a testament to that. Starting slow and just implementing things on a weekly or monthly basis, and then seeing how it affects your mood, your body, your mental state, your ability to perform in sports, those types of things. Embrace experimentation. Try substitute meats like Joe was talking about. Try substitute meats or don't try substitute meats. You know, you can try those things out. I personally believe that if you want to eat plant-based and you want to eat the same exact foods that you ate before you were plant-based, I mean, maybe it's not the right switch for you. You know, just try eating different types of foods that fulfill your requirements, and then see how it goes. Your taste buds, as Simone said, will change. Prep work. Speaking to the cooking, prep work is key, and it's also fun. I mean, you can mix things together and put them in Tupperware containers and use them days later. You know, that it's very easy to. Well, I mean, I don't cook a lot of our stuff, so I'm speaking for my wife, but she mixes a whole bunch of stuff together and makes and portions it out, and you know, it's meals for days. She also said, I had to add this to the list, but she's in dietetics, so it's tailored to the person, the individual. So, you know, no, we're not giving you a meal plan tonight, right? Because we don't know it. You know, it's your job to experiment and to have fun with it. You know, and then to see, hey, is this something that is helping me or hurting me, or what's going on here? Kind of as Greg did, and then see where it goes. How I personally can help all of you and help the panel is research, I guess my own personal experience, and then like I said, I'm open-minded. I'm big into multidisciplinary study. So I study a lot of different things, and the one commonality among a bunch of different disciplines, is that, well, I shouldn't say what's common among them. When you start to study a whole bunch of different things, you start to see parallels between them. And those parallels, for the sake of tonight, are plant-based eating. Like you see on the board over there, you've got snowboarders, you've got MMA fighters, you've got people in every single sport that Greg could think of, performing at the highest level of sport, which we might do at some point, but but they're doing it now, and they're seeing great success. So it's worth a shot. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's what you got. That's all you got for today.
That's all I got for today.
Our plant-based 102 for sure. So thanks again, and there's just so much more to go into. So if you want to keep it simple, you keep it simple. If you're looking for a taste, let me know. I'll be more than glad to make suggestions of how you can achieve that through plant-based ingredients. It's just really knowing, and it's always a constant learning curve for me as well, and it's enjoyable, and sometimes it can be a little challenging. We got an air fryer, I'm like, okay, this is not working, do something else. And just finding different ways to make things healthier. It'd be awesome. It's not an expensive piece of equipment. It'd be awesome for the clubs to have an air fryer so that they can then convert some recipes that we like their Brussels sprouts across the way, and not have it be filled with oil, but just the flavor that they put on it. It's just really that simple. It's taking another step, but it's educating people, educating the chefs, educating people to make the changes that we are looking for. We may be small in numbers now, but as younger people move in and they want to have some healthier options for themselves and their kids, we want to take it to them in the next level for the clubs here. So again, thanks, Mike. And bringing more scientific research and information to this panel this evening is Rick Weisinger, whose background as a lecturer focuses on the role of nutrition in weight loss and diabetes, cancer, heart diseases, brain diseases, and in fact, nearly every known health problem. Rick's the author of What the Experts Say About Food and Cancer, and co-author of Nutrition Guide for Clinicians. Okay, I'll let you take it there, Rick.
I'm wondering if maybe, before I say anything, I've been a professional lecturer, so it's too tempting for me to stand here and try to stimulate your brain cells and make you think that I'm witty and intelligent with all this great information I have for you. I'd rather start out asking you folks where you're at in your journey and what you might think is keeping you from going further into being plant-based. Is anybody at the point where they're struggling, and can they speak to that? Okay, good, thank you.
Not loving to cook.
Not loving to cook.
Not loving to cook,
Okay.
you know.
Okay, we have a solution, because Greg, why don't you stand up and just address that, if you don't mind?
No,
There's a company called Morsel, and then Greg will tell you about Meals Delivered.
Yeah, so there's a company here in Savannah that will deliver here to the landings all over Savannah called Morsel, and I think their website is Morsel Meals. Is that right? Morsel Meals. But anyways, you order once a week. They deliver on Tuesdays. I'll get a box of all kinds of meals and just put them in the refrigerator. You can pop them out, put them in the toaster oven. It's usually most of their stuff heats up like 15 minutes or whatever, and I've got a great meal. Because I don't like to cook either. I mean, I use my Instant Pot a lot. Like I'll make oatmeal, things like that. But the morsel is made it even easier to be a lazy vegan.
There you go.
I also agree with what Laurie was saying before. You can make a dinner or a lunch out of a baked potato and a bagged salad.
Yeah.
That's you don't have to cook. You can microwave a potato or a sweet potato. You can buy some soup and doctor up by throwing some frozen vegetables in it. There are also frozen commercial plant-based entrees that are low salt, low fat, and fairly good tasting. I've had a couple of them recently. So the food manufacturers like Healthy Choice and Amy's are refining their approach to processed foods because they know the consumers want stuff that tastes good and is good for them. Okay. What about the rest of you folks? Who here has already converted to an entirely plant-based diet? Raise your hand, please. Okay, so most of the audience, raise your hand if you're not plant-based at this point.
Well, I mean, I think there's a spectrum. It's not all or nothing. So I eat salmon. I still eat salmon. I still eat cheese. I mean, it's good for me. I know it's probably not, but my wife is vegan, and I certainly see the benefits of how even approaching it to be more vegetarian, more vegetable oriented has helped me, and certainly helped her too. So it's, in my mind, there's a degradation of choices to make.
Yeah, it's a continuum, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's a point I wanted to make. If you speak to anybody and ask them, and I've done this dozens of times, are you eating the same way now that you were eating 10 years ago? Almost 100% of people will say, no, I gave up drinking soda, I stopped eating red meat, I started eating more fruit, I stopped stopping at the Krispy Kreme on my way. Everybody can tell you that they've made changes, usually constructive ones, in their diet. I guess the question that remains is, are you going to make enough changes to beat that fatal or near fatal diagnosis so that there's a little bit of pressure on us as we get older to push ourselves to go further towards healthier eating, which we associate with plant-based, but in fact there are healthier ways to eat that are not plant-based but are better than fast food and better than eating junk food and processed food, right? So this is something I talked about at Simone's house when we did a dinner. If you're on a continuum, if you make yourself get on a continuum where you try to make constructive changes in your eating and drinking habits, a little bit at a time, be conscious about it, and try to make at least 2 or 3 changes in a year's time. Think of what can happen in 5 years. You could have made 10 huge changes in your eating and drinking habits. Maybe you're drinking green tea now and you used to drink soda. Maybe you're eating high fiber bread and you used to eat white bread. Maybe you're making sure that you eat 3 pieces of fruit a day when you used to eat 0 to 1. the research says that every one of these changes is associated with statistically like 15 to 20% lower risk for cancer, stroke, Alzheimer's disease, and many different types of cancer. So how many of you feel that you don't know which way to go next though? Like you're kind of walking on eggs, or you're not sure of this? Maybe we can help with that.
I have an issue to discuss, and that is, what do you do with your social life? Because most of our other friends are meat eaters and eating all the stuff that we want to get away from. You end up losing your friends, you only have vegan friends. It becomes a real issue in terms of how do you drop your association with these people when you're having dinner out 2 or 3 times a week with different people. It's a challenge, I think. I'm not saying you can't do it, but that is I think here on the landings is an issue.
Can I address that one second? So what happened to us, we had an evening at our house, and we had 2 couples that didn't know each other. They came to our house. And for whatever reason, Richard and I had to leave for a little while. We came back, and they had eaten the food that I made, plant-based food. And then they buddied up, and they started going out to eat without us. I mean, yeah, didn't even invite us to say, listen, we're coming here, can you find something, whatever. And it became hurtful. It was hurtful to Richard, more so because, you know, we both had a relationship with the guys more so than the women, I must say. And you know, we would have to make other provisions. We'd have to call ahead, like, you know, we were gonna go out with Sean, and he made, you know, some calls, and who had this, and you know, some restaurant may have a special that week. Like Richard called a couple months ago. We went to Alligator Soul. They had an unbelievable stuffed pumpkin, tiger pumpkin stuffed with a risotto and such like that. They had a mushroom ceviche. They had a great dessert. We asked the chef to come out. It was like a 25-year-old chef. He was right on it. So you have to take a little bit extra time. Now, when you go to somebody's house, you can let them know. And most of the time you're bringing something, let me bring the main thing of what I'm gonna eat. You can eat the salad, ask if they have the salad, can you leave the blue cheese crumbles or the feta cheese crumbles to the side? I have found a feta cheese and blue cheese crumble by Follow Your Heart. So just a little teaspoon or tablespoon satisfies that taste and flavor for us because we haven't had it in a number of years.
Can I say something bad?
You must.
So for my plant-based eating, I'm going to use an analogy to alcohol. So when I was in college, as many people were, I could put back quite a few brewskis, you know, and your tolerance goes up and up and up, right? And then pretty soon you got to drink more and more, you know, brews to cruise or whatever they say. But anyway, but anyway, I'm just making it up as I go along. No, but anyway, the analogy would be when you eat plant-based, it's almost like your body is like yes, 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 and you develop this almost not intolerance, but you if you went out and ate like a meal with your friends, for example, your body would be probably fine with that. You know, you could probably take a day where you'd say, okay, we're gonna go eat with our friends a certain way, and then when we come back home, we're gonna go right back into our schedule. I have relatives that mostly on my wife's side that they're not going to change how they cook, and when we go for Christmas and everything, and everything that Simone says are good points, and you want to try to do those things when you can. But for me, I didn't feel comfortable, you know, asking my wife's mom to cook differently because she's Filipino and she's been cooking that way for a very long time, and all of her dishes could be adapted as well. But I just sort of, you know, say it's okay, you know, for me to eat that way. But I will say that when I'm on vacation, my running times increase, not decrease. So when I go out for runs at her house, you know, I can feel the weight of the food. I can feel like everything going on. And then when I come back home and I'm back on my plant-based diet, I'm flying again when I'm out running. So yeah, this is rich time, but yeah.
So it's plant-based, not plant-pure, okay? You give yourself some leeway. But the next morning, like Laurie shared with me, she was on vacation recently, and she had something, and the next morning she wasn't feeling good. Your body's gonna tell you more of when you don't feel good. So you know, you go, you know what? I'm eating a certain, but people have a gluten issue. I know some people in the room don't eat wheat gluten. They have no problem speaking up. I can't eat that pasta. I'll bring my own pasta and I'll have the sauce. That's okay. People have a lot of other issues going on these days, and I think people are more respectful and mindful of those. So, you know, I've had an expression, if you don't stand for something, you can fall for anything. And I don't mean to be, you know, mean about that, but, you know, you can, you know, set it up, and if you want to have that night off, then have that night off. The next morning, your body will tell you, or you'll be fine, and you'll go along, and you'll continue, and you don't have to make it a big deal. For me, I don't think I can eat that. I don't think I can stomach it. I had a bite of a chocolate croissant in Israel 3.5 years ago. I had that butter in my palate that I couldn't get away because it was lining my mouth, and there was nothing that I can drink that could dissipate it. So, you know, it was my body saying, you don't like this anymore, you know? So your body will tell you, and you know, we're not used to listening to our bodies because they're so filled with other things that we're not getting the signals. You know, there's a main signal between your gut and your brain and telling you when you're full and such like that. And plant-based kind of brings that more alive for people.
So I want to add to your question and then ask the audience another question. We'll have a little fun with that. So you will find that if you look at the menu of a restaurant online, that you'll be able to eat anywhere, even a steakhouse. You can find a full meal there that is not meat-based. There's soups, salads, sides like potatoes, vegetables, and you can literally get quite full without touching any meat in just about any restaurant, even in Savannah, just about anywhere, as long as you're willing to maybe order off the side menu instead of a main menu. All right, so let's have fun with a question. I'm going to name a number of different factors involved in food choices, and I want you guys to guess which one is the number one for most people. So people choose foods based on convenience. People choose foods based on price. People choose foods based on availability. People choose foods based on taste. And people choose foods based on what they can afford. So that's 5 factors we have: taste, affordability, convenience, what was the other one?
Right.
Convenience.
All right, so raise your hands if you think that convenience is the number one reason people choose a food. Okay. So hardly anybody raised their hand, but for you guys, maybe that is the number one reason. Okay, how many of you think that affordability is the most important factor in choosing food for people? Okay, so no, we agree that
Well, it
that's.
depends on your social
Talking about us
strata.
or
I mean,
other
obviously, if you have food desert and you go,
Yes,
make
us.
certain choices, then affordability is gonna be it.
Right.
So, where we are now.
All right. How many of people think that ease of preparation is a leading factor? How easy?
No, I think it's,
Okay. The actual answer is taste. Taste is the number one reason that people choose foods. So this is a key to helping people convert from an unhealthy diet to a healthy diet, whether it's plant-based or not. People will eat stuff if it tastes good. So I can tell you so many times that I prepared a meal that would have been meat-based with a meat substitute, served it to family and friends, and they never knew the difference. And then halfway through the meal, when they commented how good it was, I'd say to them, you know, that's not real ground beef. That's a ground beef replacer. That's not real Italian sausage. That's a plant-based Italian sausage. And they didn't care. All they knew was that it tasted good, right? So converting to a healthier diet, you have to find things that appeal to your sensibilities, and usually those things are better for you than what you started out with. Okay. How much time do we have, Savannah?
Well, we can take other questions from people and such like that, so if there are any other questions they have, that's fine, we have some time.
All right, otherwise I'm just gonna continue speaking at you.
Yeah.
unless you've got-
So my biggest thing for going all the way vegan would be, I worry about getting enough protein. And
Perfect.
is it a complete protein when you're eating vegetarian? Or are you getting a protein, but is it a complete protein?
Right, this is a very important question, because once upon a time, we were given some very bad information by somebody who didn't know what the hell they were talking about, and for some reason, it became gospel in this country, that you have to combine rice and beans, you have to combine tortillas and corn and rice and beans to get complete protein. It's a lie, it's a total myth. All foods have all the essential amino acids. They may be poorer in some and in others, but they all have, you can't get protein deficient eating an entirely plant-based diet. It's impossible. As long as you have enough calories, your body will spare the protein in your food, not break it down and use it as a source of energy, and there'll be enough protein to synthesize antibodies, skin, hair, nails, etc., etc. And this is, do you want to say something
Yeah,
about
Trish,
that?
we put together that plant-based food,
Yes.
so take a picture of that, so you can have that and use it, and like I said, it overlaps a lot, so that you have your answer, a lot of foods do.
Piggybacking on that, the soy becomes a protein base for a lot, but what about women that are on estrogen replacement therapy? Would they have a risk associated with that?
No, that's another myth. The literature is very, very clear that women who eat soy have a lower risk for breast cancer and a lower risk for breast cancer recurrence. Because soy, the isoflavones in soy actually act as an estrogen receptor antagonist in breast and reproductive tissue, and they act as an estrogen agonist in bone tissue where you want it to, because it helps.
So it won't increase the estrogen that they're actually substituting if they're on replacement therapy then?
Right.
Not at all.
No, and it does not have a feminizing effect in men, so men don't have to worry about that. Yeah, but to the issue of protein, we live in a protein-obsessed society. As a matter of fact, I'm writing a book about this. It's called Right Protein, Wrong Protein. I've been writing it for 2 years. If I come back here to lecture 2 years from now, I'll probably still be working on it. The problem is, we as a society believe that protein is the most important nutrient, that you can't eat enough of it, there's no such thing as too much protein, and there are numerous problems with that. One of those problems is that too many protein foods are high in saturated fat and cholesterol, right? So you got a lot of people who are stopping at McDonald's in the morning and getting their sausage, egg, cheese, butter, biscuit, thinking, oh, I need my protein, and they're getting a whopping dose of saturated fat and cholesterol and sodium and white flour. It's basically death in a package, right? We not only do we not need that much protein, when we eat in excess of protein, it throws off our endocrine system, our hormonal system. And I promised Simone that I wouldn't get too technical about this, and I know that she's very accurate when it comes to throwing shoes and hitting something with it. So I'm not gonna risk getting hit in the head, so I'm not gonna go down this road. But trust me when I tell you, if somebody was gonna mess with your hormones and you put estrogen in the body of a man or testosterone in the body of a woman, you wouldn't allow that. But what we're doing by eating excess protein is we're changing our body chemistry in ways that create this inflammation, that cause multiplication of cancer cells, that causes, let's put it this way, we associate most of the damage of a bad diet with saturated fat and cholesterol, right? If most Americans knew the truth, that a lot of this damage is caused by excess protein, it would blow their ever-loving minds. But that's exactly what's happening. So.
Rick, can you speak to like the hormones that are in cheese? Because we always thought cheese because the calcium was good and we needed that for our bones as opposed to the other way around.
Actually, I can't tell you, I'll tell you why, because I haven't seen any really clear data, and I'm somebody who's been looking at the nutritional research for 35 years, almost constantly. You know, recently I've taken kind of a break, but I used to look at it constantly to see what was coming out. I haven't seen good evidence that the hormones in those foods interact with our hormone receptors in our bodies. I see other kind of damage happening, but and there may be research on this, but I haven't seen it.
It's saturated fat though, like, in a cow, I mean, there's no fiber in a cow.
Right.
There's a fiber in a banana, so a banana has more good nutrients for us than anything that the cow has, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's unquestionable, the best evidence and the consensus among food scientists and physicians who work in the field is that a plant-based diet, a mainly plant-based, not exclusively necessarily, but a mainly plant-based diet is what suits our physiology, our digestive system, or hormonal system. It's not the type of diet that necessarily excludes animal products, but it minimizes them. And once you get to the point where you're eating like that, this is what we call a blue zones diet. How many of you have heard of the blue zones? Okay, so most of you guys know what this is about at this point. You know, these folks are eating a mainly plant-based diet, but they do have some dairy, usually cultured dairy, which has a probiotic effect. They do eat some eggs, but it's like 2 a week rather than 3 a day like we do here in this country. They eat meat, I think 5 times a month. So it's like a treat to them, but it's not part of their diets every day. We have a long way to go before we get to that type of diet here in this country, but thanks to guys like Dan Buettner, we're getting closer to that. He's doing a lot of Blue Zones projects throughout the U.S. I'd love to see Savannah do a Blue Zones project. And if anybody decides that they want to get one started and they need some help, count me in.
Well, the other thing too with the Blue Zone is that those people are eating or drinking their dairy or their whatever from their sources locally.
Yeah.
They're not being, in cages and, and however they're fed and all the hormones that are shot into the animals and stuff unnecessarily. So it just is a cleaner version of it. And they may not be looking to change their taste buds and whatever, that's part of their life and culture. And, they may smoke a cigarette and they may live to over 100 years old is what, right? So
this is also an environmental issue. We have got to reduce our consumption of animal products and even fish because the oceans are being overfished and it's contributing to global warming. But a whole different aspect of this that I want you guys to consider is that this is very psychological. You may think this is nutrition science, which is molecular biology, and you may think it's all sciencey, but it's also got a lot to do with psychological science because it involves behavior change. And behavior change scares people, right? If we get comfortable in doing things the way we do them, eating a certain way, and when you tell people that they should think about eating a different way, doing things a different way, it causes stress. And stress hormones don't make us feel good, they make us feel bad, so people tend to avoid them, okay? And as we know from the COVID pandemic and the lack of vaccinations, people believe not what the truth is, but what they want to believe. So you have tens of millions of Americans believing a certain way about their food because they want to believe that way. And they're going to continue believing that way for that reason and also for the reason of our education system. We have an education system that defends and promotes animal products in our schools and literally programs our kids and our grandkids to eat a diet that is animal protein based, and it's pretty nefarious once you think about it. It's pretty evil. But the United States is in the business of selling food to people and putting the health of the food companies ahead of the health of its citizens, which is also pretty evil if you think about it. And if it doesn't get you angry, then you probably didn't hear what I was saying. It should make you very angry that they're literally poisoning our kids and our grandkids. It's a form of slow poison. And they're growing up believing and eating a certain way. which is gonna program them to develop a terrible disease when they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s.
And this starts when they're in utero. Everything the
Yeah.
mother eats gets passed on to that unborn baby.
Yeah.
And it's all just it's a cyclical thing. It's run by big businesses and such like that. I just have a couple of quick questions to wind things up. So I'm going to ask, Laurie, what's your favorite breakfast?
Oatmeal with berries,
Okay. Steel cut?
most of the time.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And Greg, what's your favorite lunch?
Well, usually lately morsel meals.
Yeah, there you go.
Every day I have something different, and it's really good, and it's easy just to pop it in the oven.
Okay, great. Mike, what's your favorite go-to restaurant around to get something? What do you like to eat?
I mean, and I will say it's tough to find a good vegan place, but classic all plant-based is the Fox and Fig. That would have to be in your top 10. Well, my wife and I have noticed though is it's not as it doesn't change enough for us. So we start getting antsy with those choices. So then, like Rick was talking about, we kind of shop off the side menus of a lot of places, or try to get things put in that are like a plant-based patty at a burger place or something like that. And we try to do that. We also like, actually there's a place right next to our house that'll make vegan food for us. The Asian Fusion place, that's in Sandfly.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll do like they do. I mean, I'd have to look more into like what they actually put in their sauce, but but it's good. But it's but like a yakisoba, which I think is traditionally Japanese, yakisoba or yaki udon. Like I said, culture, right? You get experience to a lot of those different cultural foods, but it's that place is awesome.
More
Favorite place? My favorite place is in Asheville.
Plants?
No, we couldn't get in the plant. It's too popular. But the Rosetta is the place down the end near the highway. They've got such good food.
Okay, that's where we go to evacuate, by the way. So last couple times we had evacuated, the last time it was like, where are we gonna get decent food? So we went to Asheville. So I just wanna conclude that, and if anybody's interested in being part of the Plant Strong group, I know a lot of the women are, or some of the women are here. Just, you need to be part of Land Lovers as well. I think he was here initially. There's a sign up if you're not, if we don't have your email address, so please put it in. If your name is part of the email address, you just put your email address, I'll figure that part out. And the next event that I'm putting together is a Valentine's dinner at Palmetto. I'm working with the chefs and catering to come up with a nice menu, a couple of my recipes, and will be served in the Azalea Room. So I have one table of 9 thus far. It'd be nice to get a couple other tables, maybe to have somebody play keyboard when we're first coming in, and also getting vegan wines and some vegan non-alcoholic wines as well. Because another friend told me that she was on a cruise, a river cruise, and they had some non-vegan wines, and they said people were actually drinking those because they tasted better. So they're working with the sommelier to come up with a nice pairing for us. So there are ways, it takes some time, so it's not a commitment, but I just want to be able to follow up with you, see who's interested, don't know pricing yet, but I'll be more than glad to do that, okay? So, thank you.